Okay, we are live. Hey guys, what's going on? James here. Welcome back to yet another episode of the MrBucsNation podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, one of my best friends, it's Mr. Billy Will underscore Walsh underscore NFL here on YouTube. Billy, how you doing today, man?
Tomorrow, lots of family, football, good food, all the important stuff.
Yeah, obviously happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Literally tomorrow, Billy. What a great way to start off. Thanks. Favorite Thanksgiving food?
Are you asking me right
I
now?
am asking you.
Put me on the spot,
I'm putting
James.
you on the spot, my man.
I'm kind of the person. I'm the guy at the table. I like to have kind of a an ensemble, and I
Mm.
like to put it all up. So truthfully, to me, I'm gonna say mashed potatoes, but I need the mashed potatoes to have like turkey gravy and turkey in it too. It's not just mashed potatoes. It's mashed potatoes plus.
This is gonna be a very hot take from me. I I like Thanksgiving, obviously. Great holiday.
Um,
The food, the food though, is not good on its own. So like what I mean by that is if you're eating turkey is such a dry bird, right? By itself. That
okay.
is undebatable. I don't care what anybody says. And you need gravy. You need to eat it the way you just recommended. That's the only way to eat it because if you try to eat everything by itself, it is so boring. It's so lame. I don't even think that's a hot take. I think that I'm
Well,
just
some people do. I know, like, because when I mix food together like that, some people think that's just lunacy to mix and mash
you
like your.
have to. Bro, because when you got Thanksgiving, look, we're gonna be talking about this at the end of the podcast too. We'll come back to it. We're gonna have like probably a 30-minute conversation about Thanksgiving. Okay,
Okay, sounds good.
somebody said if I had deep fried turkey, look, turkey's one of those birds. I don't care how you cook it. I'm sure deep fried is the best way to do it, but
Never had turkey.
why couldn't they have just had chicken back whenever the pilgrims were there? Why couldn't they, I'm sure there was a lot of chickens around. Why'd you have to pick turkey? Why did you have to, pilgrims in the Native Americans? Why did you have to do it? Come on, man. Not cool. Anyway, let's
That's what
get
makes turkey special, though. It's a once a year thing. Nobody eats turkey just casually, like, hey, it's August 18th. Let's make some turkey.
if they do, they're psychopaths. I don't care what anybody says. We're gonna get back to the Thanksgiving discussion at the end, but Billy, there's a few things we got to talk about before we get into the main point of the um episode today, right? And that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made a lot of moves. A lot of moves. Firstly, in terms of the active roster, they had released David Wells from the active roster. They had promoted J.J. Russell to the active roster. And now they have placed Raheem Jarrett on the injured reserve. That's just the active roster. So right now, as it stands, the Bucs have one open spot on their active roster. What are your thoughts and opinions about those couple of active moves, active roster moves that have been made?
Yeah, David Wells, sad to see him go, right? David Wells is one of Baker Mayfield. One of my favorite plays Baker Mayfield this year was actually recovering David Wells' fumble early in the season. I think it was either this the Bears game. I want to say it was the Bears game earlier this season. He threw the dump off to Wells, gets stripped. Baker dives on it. Awesome play. Jared is an interesting one because he does actually get for a receiver who's deep down the depth chart. He's a little bit buried, but he does see the field a pretty good amount on game day. So I'm curious to as to whether or not they're just going to put more on the backs of the guys who are already a part of the team, or are they going to reach out and try to address that via outside additions?
Yeah, it's interesting for me just because like it doesn't sound brutal. They didn't really need David Wells on the active roster. Four tight ends, like you already had Keith, Payne Durham, and obviously Kate Otten. Like you didn't really need David Wells. So I mean, this is just kind of a okay type of move. JJ Russell getting promoted. We had already talked about that with Levante David getting hurt. Actually, we're going to be diving into that later whenever we talk about the defense struggling. But that one makes a lot of sense. Now they have an open roster spot for Raheem Jarrett there, Billy. Thoughts on him getting placed on the IR?
Well, that's what I was just what I was just talking about him is for a guy who is buried deeper down the depth chart, you might not think it's an impactful loss, but they spend a lot of time with him in formation. He gets reps in the passing game. He's on the field. He plays. So they do have to find somebody either who is already playing, who is going to take more reps, or they have to find somebody else to step in and allocate reps to them because it's going to be an actual, he's an actual depth piece who does see the field. So it's not like how you're saying with David Wells, where it feels like, yeah, but so what? Jarrett does play, and he's actually coming off of a monster catch last week, especially for him.
Yeah, I mean, second longest catch ever by a Bucs rookie wide receiver, I believe. So cool stat there. But they also did make some moves on the practice squad, Billy. Some stuff that we are gonna dive in. Alam makes a good point. We'll talk about that in a moment as well. But for a guy who should be getting reps in place of Raheem Jarrett now being on the IR, but they signed V Jones to the practice squad. Billy V Jones, younger brother, fun fact, of Zay Jones, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, younger brother to former Vikings wide receiver Caleb Jones, also son of Robert Jones, who played 10 seasons in the NFL, actually won 3 Super Bowls. So shout out to him. He was a part of that Cowboys dynasty that they had. I think he was also on the Rams whenever they won the Super Bowl in 96, 97. So dude was just around for a lot of Super Bowls. Shout out to him for that. But V Jones, the younger brother of those guys, you know, kind of taking J.J. Russell's spot on the practice squad. You also have Quandre Mosley, who's been brought into the practice squad. It's not William Jackson. It's not Darius Phillips. It's Quandre Mosley. He has spent time with 4 different teams in the past calendar year, one of them actually being the Bucs. A calendar year, Billy, from being released from the team's practice squad in 2022. He's back in 2023. So shout out to him for that. They also brought in the most piratey name in the world. Rayleigh Webb has been brought in to the practice squad. He is a couple years experienced at wide receiver, 6'2", 204 pounds, was with the Patriots, was with the Ravens also, and then they did eventually re-sign David Wells to the practice squad also. So the practice squad's full now, Billy. I'm not going to ask you your thoughts necessarily on all those different guys because, you know, it's a lot of different rotating names. But what I do want to ask you is, who do you think could get promoted from the practice squad at wide receiver in place of Raheem Jarrett's injury? Because you have 3 different guys. You have Cephas Johnson, Ryan Miller, David Moore, and then obviously you have Rayleigh Webb now in that mix. But anybody kind of jump off the page to you in terms of wide receivers that could be getting some opportunities now? Of course, Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins are going to be playing a little bit more, but thoughts on any of those guys on the practice squad potentially getting promoted?
Give me Webb. I'm all about it. I'm here for the name value. I think it's fantastic. As far as, yeah, Trey Palmer and Devin Tompkins, I think, and Trey Palmer in particular, because they already do feature Trey Palmer a lot. Devin Tompkins is much harder to get involved because he's more of a specialty role player style of receiver. He's just limited, unfortunately. But Trey Palmer is going to be a guy who already, we talked about this. We kind of addressed this in past episodes. Trey Palmer gets a lot of reps as is, potentially more than you might think that he should. He's about to get a boatload more than that because they're thinner and thinner, and Trey Palmer is experienced. He's going to get the opportunities when Mike Evans is doubled and Chris Godwin is taken away. Although you would hope maybe now with an injury, less bodies, more reps going to Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans would be at the forefront of Dave Canales' game plan.
I love Rayleigh Webb's name, right? What a piratey name. Give me David Moore. I've been talking about this guy for past week and a half, about 2 weeks now. Give me David Moore. I mean, I almost called him Rayleigh Moore just because that name stuck in my head. Give me David Moore. I just like the guy. I feel like if you give him some opportunities, I liked what I saw from him in training camp and preseason and whatnot. Give him a chance, man. I think that he can do some cool things and maybe make the most of some of those limited opportunities. I do understand Trey Palmer. I do understand Devin Tompkins obviously getting some more reps. I like both those guys, of course. You only have 4 wide receivers on your roster right now. You need somebody there. Point blank, simple as that. So bring in, you know, David Moore. Hey, maybe they could finally add all those Saints wide receivers we talked about in last week's podcast, Billy. Marquise Callaway actually signed with the Saints practice squad. So
Jarvis Landry's still out there.
Bring him in. Bring in JL. Bring him in. But regardless, Billy, a lot of different moves were made. A lot of different things have been done so far. And I just wanted to address those here in the first little bit of this podcast. But to dive into it, Billy,
Yes.
the title of the podcast is How Can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Fix Their Struggling Defense? Here's the situation. Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense struggled against San Francisco 49ers. Struggled against the Houston Texans. Had a good rebound game against the Tennessee Titans, but that's Tennessee Titans team that, oh my God, they look bad. And right now, throughout the second half of the season, Billy, I don't think it's a hot take to say that the Bucs defense has been struggling in a lot of different ways. The pass rush has been struggling a little bit. Now they have changed some stuff, which I want to talk about here in a moment. In terms of that pass rush,
Mm-hmm.
the run defense has looked decent, all things considered. The secondary, not fun. And things just got worse because now Carlton Davis is hurt again. Jamel Dean is hurt again. Levante David is hurt. Oh God. Oh no. Ryan Neal still dealing with some injuries. There's a lot. And I know what everybody's take is on Ryan Neal, but point being is that there's a lot of starters hurt is the main point, right? That's the main point, is that there's a lot of starters hurt. So Billy, let's kind of talk about the change. Let's first start by talking about the changes that have already been made. Joe Tryon. So first off, what's your thoughts? Let's talk about the injuries. What are your thoughts on those injuries? What do you think they're going to do to impact the Bucs? Right now, we don't necessarily have any big diagnoses. We don't have
Diagnoses.
any big diagnoses on Levante David and Carlton Davis yet. Jamel Dean is considered week to week, which, looking at the situation, I thought my man was going to be placed on the IR. Was not the case. What are your thoughts on those injuries that the Bucs are dealing with to three pretty key starters on defense?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe what the lack of heat that comes from saying the Bucs defense has been suspect. Maybe here when I say I only think one of those injuries is like a killer. To me, Levante David missing any time at all is detrimental. He's been the best player maybe on the team this year. I guess you could put Winfield in the discussion for the best player on the defense, but Levante David carries it. Every week you see him, TFL's in the backfield. He's gotten pressure on the quarterback. He's in coverage. If he could catch a little better, he'd have interceptions left and right. Like, that's a huge loss. And not even just for the ability that the ability to make plays that he brings, but covering up other people, I think, is something that Levante David may not get a full amount of recognition for. That's a huge loss. Davis and Dean. Has anyone felt like Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean have put forth good product this year? I mean, I understand on paper they're definitely a head and shoulders, like a step above the guys behind them. Zion McCollum has struggled tremendously when he's been in the game this year, or just really his entire Bucs career. But Davis and Dean have 0 interceptions between them this season. It's not as if they're making plays left and right. Losing them, Dean lets up a touchdown last week. You mentioned in the Houston Texans game how bad the defense played. Carlton Davis was a main culprit for the terrible performance by the secondary in that game in particular. So I'm not necessarily like broken up about the fact that if they don't play, I'm excited potentially to see some new faces. But I'm curious because they are big names and they're high paid. What are you thinking on that?
Well, Billy, first off, I'm glad that you brought this up because I talked about this in a separate video. Carlton Davis is allowing a passer rating of 126.1 when targeted this year. Jamel Dean's allowing 118.7 when targeted. The only guy that's above them is Ryan Neal at 158.3. Perfect passer rating. A completion percentage of 96.7 for Ryan Neal, just to throw him in there. A completion percentage of 68.2 for Carlton Davis, and a completion percentage of 66.7 when targeted. Okay? whenever you take a look at some of the other guys who have played, Levante David's allowing a 102.6 rating when targeted and an 82.5. It's still better, you know. I mean, like the completion percentage isn't, but the passer rating is. But whenever you look at the guy you talked about, Zion McCollum is the first guy that comes to mind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, he's been targeted 2 less times than Jamel Dean, 4 less times than Carlton Davis. Okay,
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
I'm ready.
Completion percentage of 55% when targeted, passer rating of 85.4 when targeted. It's better. Is it much better? You know, actually, yes.
It is.
Whenever you boil it
It
down, Christian
is.
Izien targeted 5 less times than Jamel Dean, right? Yeah. And 7 less times than Carlton Davis. 81.1 completion percentage, but 82.2 passer rating when targeted. And then you get into some kind
I
of
like
long.
it. I'm a big Izzian fan. I
Well,
like it. But
and
that's a little different because Izzian's playing he's the nickel corner playing in the slot a lot of the time. So that's a little bit different situations.
those are different. Those are different for sure. I agree with that. D. Delaney targeted 19 times this year, 36.8 completion percentage when targeted, 14.5 passer rating when targeted. He's got 2 interceptions this year.
Against who?
One was against Jameis
And Jalen Hurts.
and Jalen Hurts. So, point being though is that specifically, let's just talk about Zion McCollum because that's the closest reference, right? Because like you said, Christian Izzian's in a different spot. D. Delaney obviously hasn't had enough targets thrown his way.
And D
Um,
Delaney's taking reps at safety a lot
and
too.
he's
So
and he's getting a lot of reps at safety now. He should be getting more, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Zion McCollum though, not far off in terms of targets, and he's actually playing better. I remember whenever I first looked into those stats, I thought like I thought the same thing. Like, oh, you know, Zion McCollum is just hasn't been good this year. But statistically, you look at the stats, man, on paper, technically playing better.
yes, he's playing better, but he's not playing. I wouldn't go as far as say he's playing well. He's
No, well, good lord, Billy. I mean,
based on those stats, we have the Bucs have potentially two of the worst corners. That's like the worst starting quarterback tandem you could imagine. We letting up everybody. That's terrible. So to say McCollum's better is just, you know, yes, but if you're better than terrible,
but the
you
point is that you had just talked about the idea of, hey, is losing Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis really that big a deal given the year that they've been having? And if you look at the
No.
stats, maybe it is. And look, obviously you're not going to bench those guys, right? Like Larry Foote put it best when he's like, look, the guys who get paid a ton of money are going to play, right? And you gave Carlton Davis a big contract for a reason. You gave Jamel Dean a big contract for a reason. I'm not saying those guys are. I'm not going to defend it and say those guys have been playing well, but just given the circumstances and the context of the situation they're in, you're not
Right.
really gonna. It's not realistic to say we'll just bench them and put in Zion McCollum as the full time starter. Put in Derek Pitts Jr. as the full time starter. That's not realistic, Billy.
One thing
Is
I
that
think
also fair to say?
that it's not realistic to bench those two guys.
It's not as simple and it's not as just point blank realistic just to say, okay, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean are fully benched. They're the full backups now.
Listen, I don't think it's as simple, but I don't think it's unrealistic either because that's gonna. I got I got points to make when we get to how to fix things that are along lines of what you're talking about. But I will say one thing because of the fact that both of them are gone, right? And Izzian is going to be in the slot exclusively. He's not going to go outside. That's not the type of corner, right? The Buccaneers are going to be stretched pretty thin in terms of their depth. Right? You might see guys like Josh Hayes, or you talked about Derek Pitts Jr. and D. Delaney is kind of in a weird spot now because D. Delaney is a corner, but he's been playing safety.
Been
Will
playing
they
safety well.
will they bounce him from safety back to corner, just out of needing bodies? It'll be interesting to see how Bowles kind of throws together a combination of starters or, who he's going to put out there, what packages they're going to be in. I think it might limit a lot of what Todd Bowles can do because you might have to keep three corners. You might not be able to go anything past nickel, right? You might not be able to deploy a dime defense just because you physically don't have the people. You don't have the personnel. It's possible. So it'll be interesting to see how he strategically approaches it. Of course, he's going to be heavily hamstrung by losing your two starting corners, even if they're playing well beneath what you would expect and hope them to the level that for them to be at. It's just going to be it'll be difficult, and it'll be very interesting to see how a guy who is a defensive strategist looks at these pieces and how he moves them around the chessboard this week.
Yeah, so we've already talked about some of the injuries and how those effects could have on some people. Billy, one guy who's, and I do get what you're saying, where, look, I mean, Todd Bowles said it best, like, if guys aren't going to play well, then they're going to be replaced, right? And we've already seen a little bit of that. But for me, you're paying those guys so much money for a reason, right? So it's just, I can't be 100% convinced that if those guys are healthy, they're not going to get the looks, you know?
Sure.
I just, so, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But another thing that already happened, Billy, is the emergence of Yaya Diaby,
Yep, I have it
who,
written down. I wanted to talk about him.
and that's already one change that we've seen. Jotran Shawinka essentially benched for Yaya Diaby. Let's just kind of call it how it is.
Yes.
And Yaya's kind of going out there and being pretty good, Billy. Thoughts on Yaya so far this year?
First of all, much like our reference earlier to a great pirate name on our practice squad, Yaya Diaby, name of the year candidate without question. But yeah, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, I mean, 3 sacks this season, 4 sacks last season, 4 sacks as a rookie. When someone shows you what they are enough over and over again, just believe them, right? That's who they are. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is going to be disappointing, to say the least, if he's your starting edge rusher. So I love the fact that you make that move. Yaya Diaby shows a lot of like when he's out there, he looks explosive. He plays up the field, which is nice. You kind of like to see defensive linemen play through offensive linemen and explode into the backfield, get a chance at TFLs, potentially pressure a quarterback out of the pocket, and things like that. It's nice to see an explosive player on the Bucs defense. I think you see that a little bit with Cansey is very explosive. I think the Bucs lack a lot of explosion on their defense. There's not a lot of players that run around Tampa Bay's defense and have a lot of pop. Like think of a young Gerald McCoy. A lot of times when you had a young McCoy, he could explode through the offensive line, wind up in the backfield, and even if he doesn't make the play, he disrupts the play. He creates a little bit of havoc, maybe throws the running back off, forces him to bounce, allows other people to make the play themselves. I think that's something that you see from Yaya, just a little bit of that burst. And I don't know why you wouldn't. I think the Bucs are making the right decision. I don't know why you wouldn't lean into giving that guy more opportunities.
I guess I should say this just to clarify. JTS hasn't been fully benched. He actually Yaya outsnapped him in week 9,
Mm-hmm.
but JTS then outsnapped him in week 10. So
And I believe was the quote from Bowles something like, if we play running teams, Yaya will get more reps. Depends on the opponent. I think he basically hinted at it depends on the matchup, and the is going to depend on the personnel that we deploy. I think some of the quote was something along those lines.
okay, yeah, and also JTS does not play barely any special teams. Yaya plays a lot of special teams, so just kind of important to make a note of there. But and Yaya's been getting a good bit of snaps this year. Like he's gotten over 40% of defensive snaps in 4 games this year, which is
Impressive.
pretty notable, right? Interesting thing to note is the 4 teams that was against was the Vikings, the Titans, the Lions, and the Bears. So I mean, 3 out of those 4 teams are running teams.
Three out
Um,
of those 4 games are wins.
it's true. That is true. But no, just kind of an interesting thing to note more is hopefully that is something to speak to Yaya getting some more opportunities moving forward. I mean, we've seen what he can do. He's only 2 pressures behind JTS. He's obviously at more sacks than JTS, quarterback hits, hurries. It's all very comparable um, to what JTS has been doing, and I just think Yaya's been doing it better.
All right. Well, JTS is doing that in year 3.
Yeah,
Right.
Yaya's doing that in his rookie year. So
Yeah.
so it is an interesting thing to note there, Billy. But that's kind of the one big change the Bucs have made so far. Now let's kind of talk into some ways as to what the Buccaneers, what else they can do to fix this defense. Because I feel like there are a few different things that you could kind of look to do. I'm gonna toss it to you. What are some notes that you have as to some of the things the Bucs could work on to fix their defense?
I think the key really is you could look at it from a schematic standpoint, and I think we kind of hinted at that a couple streams ago. We talked about schematically, maybe the Bucs should stop doing what they're doing and go back to doing more of what they used to do. But I understand, I'm not going to harp on schematics too much because I understand the concepts of, in theory, what Todd Bowles is attempting to do defensively. I think he feels a little bit like he is undermanned and overmatched. So less, he plays a little bit more risk adverse, and he banks on the fact that you are not going to beat his team with field goals. Rather than just trying to take the ball away and make plays, he's kind of content to let up 3 points. And that's different than in years past. I personally may not agree with it. You guys may not agree with it either. But I understand on paper why, if you looked and you felt like you had less talent, that might be the way that you would approach a game plan. I think the key for the Buccaneers is you got to trim the fat. You got to cut the dead weight. And this is perfect transition off of what we were just talking about. Guy like JTS. If people show you what they are, believe them. JTS is not a playmaker. It just isn't. And a guy like Yaya Diaby, we just talked about it, right? His trajectory is an upward trajectory. He's a rookie. He's getting increased reps as the season goes on, and he's cashing in on him. He pops off the screen on game days. JTS is a plateaued player. He's in year 3 playing like he played when he was in year 1, playing like he played when he was in year 2. Give a guy like that less playing time and give the explosive potential upstart more playing time. Another guy in a similar situation, right behind JTS, Marquise Watts. He was a guy that kind of caught a little bit of a flare and a little bit of attention. Very limited sample size, but why not dip into your talent pool and see what's beyond the surface level? If the surface level is not getting you, the highest level of production or production that you would expect. And I know that Dean and Davis are hurt, but instead of telling me each week, which Todd Bowles says he's got a nice little cycle going on. Instead of telling me each week that Carlton Davis missed that play, or that was his area to make a play, or Jamel Dean, he threw him under the bus a little bit this past week. Instead of doing that, how about just show me on Sundays? Instead of telling me, show me. Remove these players from the field if they continue to make mistakes. I'm not saying bench Dean and Davis. I'm not just saying that outright. I'm saying
Rotate in guys more.
allow other people who might give you something different the opportunity to show. Like, don't just continue to down the same guys in the media and expect things to change. You have to change them on the field. And you have to make moves that are a little bit more relevant than Ryan Neal getting benched partially for D. Delaney or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka being partially benched for Yaya Diaby. Those don't move the needle. I have a really needle-moving idea in my mind, and I'm going to pass it back to you, though, before I embark upon that, because I'm curious what your take is on how to fix this.
No, I mean I agree with a lot of what you said. In terms of just rotating guys in. Zon McCollum. I mean, look again. Like, is a full benching the answer? I don't know, but like send a message. Like
Yes.
send a message to the guys. Like again, like you said in the press conferences, if guys are going to play well, then they're going to get replaced. Do it. You know,
Yes.
and don't just half. Don't do it half. Don't just say, oh well, he's out for one drive.
Yes.
Rotate him in for a full game,
Yeah.
and see what they can do. Like, send that message. Like, hey, you've got to play better or this isn't going to go well. I have a couple of ideas of some different guys I want to see get playing time on this defense, Billy. But I do agree with what you're saying. Rotating some guys in, I feel like, is a very good idea. That one sends a message to the players like, hey, we have to play better or changes are going to be made. And
Right.
two, gives you some guys who can get some new looks in there.
Right. Like, to me, it raises the standard. Okay. We're here. If you're not playing to this
It's
standard,
not
that's
settling.
unacceptable.
It's not getting
Yeah.
complacent, and I think like players can get possibly complacent, but coaches can get but
Sure.
it keeps everybody on their toes, and I don't think that's a negative thing to be like, oh well, like if you make a mistake, what kind of precedence is that sent? It's not just if you make one mistake you're out, right? We've seen that. That's whenever you're at your real low.
Hmm.
whenever a running back fumbles the ball and then they don't get the ball the whole rest of the game. That's like some Bill Belichick type stuff. But send some, like, look, you can only run out of patience. You can only have patience for so long for certain situations. Point being, the current system is not working on a week to
Right?
week basis, so change it up
Yes.
is the
Yeah.
point.
And you talked about Larry Foote talking about how, the players, excuse me, the players who make the most are going to play. Well, why does that by default? Imagine hearing that. Imagine the complacency that that automatically puts on you. Well, my contract says I'm going to play, so it doesn't really matter how I play. I'm going to play. Like, where's your motivation then? Like that is I don't think that it would be naive for me to think like you were talking about that you could just full on bench some of your highest paid players. That doesn't happen around the league, but you don't have to be so open and brazen with that concept that just because you're paid means you play. That is not a good way to motivate people to give you their all,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to take away. Go ahead, you go. That was just, I was
No,
just
no,
kind
no,
of,
no, no. I don't really have much more to say. I mean, that's just that, before we dive into the specifics, that's just to that point, I agree with what you're saying. So let's dive more into those specifics then. What are some more specific changes that you would make in terms of guys getting more opportunities, maybe guys shirking away a little bit? What are your thoughts on that?
not, this is a hard one. Okay. It's a tough one, but I promise it's thought out. I think you send a message a lot of different ways. And I think actions speak louder than words always. And I think when we all remember, or a lot of us likely remember, Vernon Hargraves versus Bruce Arians and how that went. And I think when Vernon Hargraves was no longer allowed to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer because of Bruce Arians' decision, because he felt like Vernon Hargraves wasn't hustling, I think that was an amazing showing of leadership by Bruce Arians. I think that hit home, and I think it motivated a lot of young players to play better. And I think the results speak for themselves. I'm proof's in the pudding, right? So I think the results are clearly there. I think Todd Bowles had a quote, and this was it's a little bit disturbing of a quote, but he had a quote saying that the defense needs to concentrate on things they do. I can't imagine being told that I'm not concentrating enough. And
Complacency.
and that's right. That's a level of complacency. You're not even focused, right? You're just going through the motions. And that's where things start to become a little dangerously unacceptable. When your coach has to tell you to concentrate. So then that takes me to a little bit of a different window, to a prism, to look at it from a different angle. Sometimes coaches need leaders on the team to put their message in, right, for them. Help convey the message. Don't just be a player, be a communicator between, kind of a bridge between the coach and the locker room. And there's a guy who wears a C on his chest for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense who has woefully underachieved at a couple different points, I should say, in his career. And this season is definitely one of them. Coming off last Sunday's game is definitely one of them. And that's Devin White. And Devin White had 3 tackles last week. 3 tackles. That was against the San Francisco 49ers, who accumulated 115 rushing yards against Tampa last week. He managed 3 tackles. So, yeah, that's not great, right? That's not great production. On the season, he's third in tackles behind Levante David, who's 8, 9 years older than him, Antoine Winfield Jr., who is an undersized safety. Okay. He's sixth in sacks. And yes, he's an inside linebacker, but we know pressuring the quarterback is quite literally what he does best. So that is noteworthy that he's only sixth in sacks, also behind Levante David. And he has just 3 TFLs this year, a pedestrian 3 TFLs. I saw that stat and I couldn't believe it. 3 TFLs, and he's been responsible for 1 turnover. That's a leader. That's a captain. In addition to disappointing stats, Devin White carries himself as if he's still what he was when the Bucs were going on their Super Bowl run. And he is far from that as a player. And then personality, he himself is kind of the embodiment of some of that complacency you're talking about, whether it was Warren Sapp kind of calling him out last year, talking about how he didn't feel like Devin White was bringing his best effort forward. And I think, I'm not saying that, again, I understand you can't take some extreme measures all the time, but if you want to send a message, take the people who are supposed to be your leaders, and if they're not leading, remove the leadership from them. Right now, you don't have to bench Devin White and put him on the sidelines. You don't have to pull a Bruce Arians versus Vernon Hargraves and go that far as to just exile him from the program. A small sentiment of removing the captain patch from Devin White's jersey would send home a very valuable message. Wake him up. He is playing for the biggest contract he may ever receive in his life, and he plays unmotivated football. And he's the leader who sets the tone. And if you have players, the other thing that bothers me about Devin White, and I'm sorry, but if you have players who your coach feels like need to concentrate, at what point does the leader of the defense make sure those players are focused? At what point does that become the onus of the leader of the group to say, guys, let's get this right? Let's not just have Todd talk to us until we're deaf. Let's take it upon ourselves to get this thing right. I just feel like, to me, leaders set the tone, and the tone is incorrect right now. So look at the leaders before you look at the followers. And when you were talking about Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, I don't think that they should be benched because I don't view them as leaders. But I do think that players of their ilk, like a Devin White, maybe should be looked at for discipline, for lack of a better word.
I'm not gonna say that he should get his captain's patch removed, but I am gonna say I'm actually gonna take the different route and say rotating KJ Britt and Servassier Dennis more,
Okay.
especially in the absence of Levante.
Do you see any situation, though, even when Levante's back, that you have Levante David on the field and Devin White off the field and one of those other guys in his spot?
Do I see it
Do you
happening?
think it's valid?
Do I think it should happen? Yeah, I would say it should happen. That's sending a message of Devin, you won all this money. Look, point blank, simple as this. Like Devin White's disappeared in games. He has,
Yes.
and it's been way more times that has happened than not, where Devin
Yes.
White is there. I would play Servassier Dennis more. I would play KJ Britt more. See what those
Yes.
guys are. Quite frankly, why not? Because after this year, they're gonna be your only two linebackers left on the roster. So if you don't bring back Levante David or Devin White, which at this point they should not bring back Devin White, in my opinion. Point being though is that that's for me it's different. Like I think to your point, fully benching a guy, I don't think is a tough thing, especially whenever
Yeah.
it's guys that you've known to play good for you in the past. But if the
Yes.
guys aren't working, rotate them out. And kind of to my point is rotating in KJ Britt, rotating in Servassier Dennis Moore. One guy who I think should be rotated in more, and one guy who should be rotated out. Just point blank, simple as this. D Delaney, play him more. Why? Why? Like that's just stubbornness, in my opinion. The fact that
Yes.
D Delaney is not playing more. Play him more at safety. He should be the starting safety right now. He should be. Point blank. You keep on hearing Todd Bowles say in the press conferences, he's a ball hawk, he's a ball hawk. What the play him then, man? Like what are we talking about here?
Does he
Second
lead the team in picks this year?
tied, I think.
Tied.
I think he's
Okay.
tied.
Which
Um
is crazy considering the amount of reps that he
he's tied
doesn't
with
get
Christian Izian.
of all the people.
The second thing, which also just speaks to where the Bucs are at in their secondary, um,
Mm.
he's also fourth in passes deflected this year. So play him more. Um, Second thing, it's time. Like I like the guy personally. I've had him here on the channel. Really great dude. He's not playing well. It's time to rotate out Logan Hall. It just is. Like
Yeah.
he's starting so many games and we're just not seeing the production. Like obviously that's not the way you want it to go. Play one guy, Will Golston. Why not?
Will,
Why is he not playing more?
Will Golston and Yaya next to Vita.
You know, like and put
You can't.
Vita at D end, put Greg Gaines in at DT.
Yeah.
Get more creative because it's not working with Logan Hall this year. It's not. Can that change? Yes. Obviously, you hope it changes, but it's not working this year for Logan Hall. It's not. The dude has a half sack this year. Out of everybody that has registered a sack this year, Billy, it's the
Uh-oh.
lowest.
Oh, yeah.
He's started 8 games. He has 9 tackles this year in 8 games, Billy. He's averaging 1 tackle per game, 1 tackle for loss, 1 quarterback hit, 1 fumble recovered. It's just, he's the. D. Delaney has the same amount of tackles as Logan Hall. That's not right. That's not right. Tackles for loss, he's the lowest in anybody who has registered a tackle for loss this year. In quarterback hits, he's tied for the lowest. Marquise Watts and Cam Gill both have the same amount of quarterback hits. Christian Izien has the same amount of quarterback hits as Logan Hall. Look, I love the guy. Really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. It's not working out this year. You got to rotate in Will Golston. Maybe you look to even bring in Akeem Hicks back. I don't know. But that is something that I feel like has been detrimental. We know Vita Vea is great. We know Kalijah Cansey is great. You need somebody else there to help. You need to.
Yeah.
Those are three changes that I would make, Billy. Play D. Delaney more. Play KJ Britt and Servassier Dennis more. Rotate out Devin White more. Rotate out Logan Hall more. Probably play Will Golston more.
So I feel like a lot of what we're saying is actually really similar. When I said trim the fat, I would group Logan Hall and trim the fat he's right there. He's the fat right now.
Is that your it sounds like a slogan.
Trim the fat.
The fat. Trim the fat.
I am starting a campaign.
You know,
and he's part of the fat 100% because his production does not match his contract, does not match his draft status, and does not match his starting role. So yeah, I would agree with him. I didn't even mention Ryan Neal because I just felt like, it's just, we know.
Well, you can take a step further than that. Ryan Neal missed last week. You played Kayvon Merriweather. I like Kayvon Merriweather. D. Delaney's right there, my man. Todd, what are we doing? Why did D. Delaney play 33% of the defensive snaps last week when he should be playing all of them? Basically, not all of them, but obviously at least over 50, Billy, 50%, right?
I might go into the fact that maybe D. Delaney is a corner playing safe. So then that puts Winfield as really you really have two pass coverage safeties back there. And the Niners are a running team, so I think that might factor into Bowles' decision. I don't disagree with you, though. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, I guess, like you always do to me.
I did. How many yards did Brock Purdy pass for in that game?
I don't disagree.
330? I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying, Todd Bowles.
I think he won
Delaney more.
Did he win NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Purdy?
I don't know. I didn't check.
He won an award. He won an award he had a perfect passer rating, I think, against the Bucs. Ridiculous. But yeah, I would agree. I'm totally with you. Trimming the fat he was the NFC Player of the Week. Yeah, NFC Offensive Player of the Week. Brock Purdy, 158.3, 333 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, so obviously it didn't work. But I don't disagree at all. I think that, move players like that who are not impactful to the bench. And maybe best case scenario, right? It'd be nice if the players that come in after them make plays themselves to fill that void. But maybe the players that move to the bench, it shocks something. And oh, wow, I'm not guaranteed to play. I have to earn my reps. Put it in their hands. Understand, you're not benched forever. Just, can you show a little fight? Can you show a little passion? Let us know you care. I think that's something. And I don't know about your rotating in Devin White or rotating out Devin White. I feel like Devin White is a little bit immature, and he's the type of player who you might have a Leonard Fournette pouting situation on your hands.
If that's the situation, Billy, then you gotta say push comes to shove. How do you want to do this?
But that's why I think you just
if you're gonna have a guy who can't be professional, Leonard Fournette did the pouting thing. Bruce Arians said, "How do you want to do this? You want to be cut?" You know, that's how you got to handle those situations.
Yep. I'm totally with you on that. I just don't think Todd Bowles is capable of that conversation with Devin White the way Bruce was with Leonard. And I don't see him taking that in stride or taking that well. That's why I think it's all or nothing. Either you play him and just pretend that it's okay, and then you just let him go at the end of the season because you're obviously not going to pay him big money. Or you could bench him all the way and really send a message to everybody this is not the way we want to be. This is not the way we want to behave. It's not an acceptable standard. The middle ground to me was the captaincy. If you remove his captaincy, that means something to him. You still let him play. He's still on the team, but he's got to earn it back because you have to play like a captain plays. All right. Levante David, Antoine Winfield Jr., they play like a captain should play. They're 100% all the time. There's no quit. Doesn't matter what the situation is. They're upset when things don't go well. They play relentlessly. That's the way you should play. You should play like your hair is on fire. So it's not like a permanent thing. It's a motivational thing, if anything, because you're looking at it, or the proper way to look at it would be like, I'm going to earn that back because that was taken from me because of my own shortcomings. I'm not living up to my own standard. We know he can play better than this. We've seen him play at a high level. It's just he's not focused, dedicated, whatever you want to call it. He's not playing to his own standard, and there has to be some sort of repercussions.
So Shaq Leonard cleared waivers today, and he's a free agent.
So what are you saying, James?
Bring him in. That's what I'm saying.
And do what though? What's your plan?
Oh, play him.
What
Play him.
are you going to do though? You're going to play him and Levante if Levante is healthy?
Yeah. Yep.
You're just putting Devin on the bench.
Yep. Bring in Shaq Leonard, baby. I love Shaq Leonard. Love him. Should bring him in.
What
He's
is?
not. He's not going to come to the Bucs, but he's a free
I'm
agent.
curious because I don't.
Especially since they just promoted J.J. Russell to the active roster.
J, oh, JJ Russell is a game changer. There's
He is.
no doubt about that.
Were you saying
I
that?
don't have I don't have the chat up,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm curious. What is the vibe in the chat regarding Devin White right now? Give me
Oh,
a temp.
they're done with Devin. Chat's done with Devin right now.
Yeah,
Should have traded him when we had the chance. Look, I'm gonna say this. I don't think this is a crazy thing to say. Does Devin White really have that many more supporters left?
and isn't that sad?
Like it. I don't even mean in the organization. Obviously, the organization likes Devin White a lot. I mean in the fan base. Like
That's sad.
I don't think he does personally. Things got ugly with the trade request. All that stuff. I think that it's just you know it's kind of writing on the wall.
And
Chats
especially, I would agree because like I don't think really anybody thinks the Bucks are going to pay Devin White come this offseason. So
not
if you're
not 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 18 to 20 million dollars. Shaq Leonard just got that type of deal a couple years ago and he got cut.
so if you really don't think that you're going to keep the guy around, then why not? Why are you delaying the inevitable? You know, make the move now, and maybe it jolts like a shock and awe with the people around him. Like if he has to be the example, if you have to make the example out of him, like that's what I was trying to say before with a guy like Ryan Neal or JTS benching them or partially benching them, going through the half measures of benching them. That doesn't shock anybody. It's not jarring. They're not relevant enough, like in this hierarchy of the team. Devin White has status. If you were to put him on the bench or punish him in some way, that wakes up the people around the locker room. Like, holy cow, Todd Bowles means business. This is for real. Like, he's not tolerating nonsense. I just think that that's just my take. Just my take, James. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's no. I mean, I agree with it, man. I think that is kind of the time for stuff like that to be made. It's such a crucial point in the year, right?
Yes.
At 4-6, your next game is very important.
The next and the guys, the Buccaneers' upcoming schedule is so winnable. The Bucs should go, they
They
need to go 4-1 in the next 5 games to keep themselves relevant. And they can really do it. Toughest games are going to be the Packers and the Jaguars. Both winnable, but those are the toughest games of the schedule, right? They've got 2 games. I believe they've got the Falcons, the Panthers, the Colts. Like those are games you've got to win those games.
yeah.
They're winnable. This is the stretch of the schedule where it's a little bit softer, and you got to cash in when it's
Well, and
soft.
this is also the stretch of the schedule where it's like, okay, like now push is coming to shove, you know?
Yes.
Like you're running out of excuses. You're running out of, well, hey, it's like now's the time where it's like you got to make those tough decisions.
Yes. Running out of time. I
Yeah,
mean, really, you can't keep, you're 4-6. You lose a few more games. You can't expect everybody in the NFC South to keep losing and keep you relevant.
it's true. But now, Billy, I think
Yes.
we're done talking about the Bucks for today.
Okay. Back.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving food.
What is a typical spread? So, like, obviously, you get the very boring. It's boring. I don't care what anybody says.
James, I didn't know you were so anti-Thanksgiving.
No, I love Thanksgiving.
I don't know about this.
Turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing. So, that is the most gravy. Obviously, turkey gravy is fantastic. I don't gotta tell y'all that. Y'all know. Um, green bean casserole. That is a very traditional Thanksgiving household spread, right? You want to get real crazy? Throw a ham in there. Okay?
That is a little.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't we have cool foods on like that this I'm just speaking from my household. Why don't we mix it up?
What are you looking for? What are you trying to add?
Dude, just give me some mac and cheese.
I think a lot of people make mac and
I know
cheese.
other households do it, Billy. Mine
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't. This is
yeah.
bullcrap.
Okay. Yeah, that's a common thing. I think that we're gonna have mac and cheese this
You
year,
get
actually.
collard greens out there.
Collard greens are fantastic.
They're really good.
100%.
Like, it's just somebody said we eat duck. Brandon eats duck.
Okay,
We don't do
Brand.
anything fancy. We freaking put the turkey in the oven. It's dry as the desert.
Does Brandon eat duck instead of turkey or
That's a good
both?
question. Question to the chat. Favorite Thanksgiving food? Cranberry sauce is in there. It's too
Sweet
sweet.
potato casserole,
Sweet
sweet
potato.
potato.
We do have sweet potato casserole sometimes. Pumpkin pie.
I'm not a big pumpkin flavor.
I love pumpkin pie. That's the
Yeah.
best. That's the best part of Thanksgiving. It's pumpkin pie.
Now I know that I've lost you.
Okay, chat
The
will
be-
agree with me.
the
The
best part, this guy says,
chat will agree. You put a little whipped cream on that? It's fantastic.
an apple pie, cherry pie, blueberry pie kind of guy. If we're going pies,
Apple pie.
yeah,
I don't like cherry pie.
apple pie with vanilla ice cream.
It's pretty good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
It's fair.
yeah.
But it's just, why couldn't they have just had a chicken at why was turkey the only bird available at the first Thanksgiving? Why did it have to
Just throwing some steaks on the grill.
it's the driest yeah, put some steaks on the grill, my man. It's the driest, most boring bird.
I don't know. I feel like I've had turkey that tastes good,
I'm not saying it doesn't taste bad. It tastes good. I'm just saying I need to drink 5 cups of water while I'm eating turkey.
I think you need to like associate. You need to cook
He,
some
he,
different turkey. I don't know what you're doing with your turkey.
no, here's another thing, okay? Here's another thing. Oh, but it's so good with gravy. Why do you have to put gravy on it to make it taste good? That why can't the turkey just be good by itself? Like
You know,
you just said you mix it all up. You mix it in with the mashed potatoes. You mix it in with the turkey gravy. Okay, turkey can't just why is turkey so sad that it can't be good by itself?
but
That
that's not. I don't know if that's a knock on the turkey though, because the turkey gravy comes from the turkey. They get credit for that. Turkeys create the gravy. It's part of the turkey.
inaccurate. It's inaccurate. That's just wrong.
That's just truth.
There's nothing no, no, yes, the gravy comes from parts of the turkey,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you're adding other stuff in to make that gravy.
But you add stuff to the turkey, you season it.
Yeah, of course you season it, but
But it's
like
the same thing.
chicken is juicy enough to where you don't always need you don't need to stuff to Brandon's point, to make turkey good, you need stuff. You don't need to stuff a chicken. It makes it taste better. You don't need to put gravy on a chicken for it to taste good. It's chicken. Chicken tastes good. You can.
Brandon didn't answer our question about the duck versus the turkey. Is it both or is it one or the other?
He said they eat both. They eat both. My point being,
I like
turkey by itself, boring, boring. And it makes it a flawed Thanksgiving food because you have to add other stuff to it. I'm not saying I don't like turkey. I like turkey, but
doesn't
whenever
sound
but
doesn't
whenever
sound like turkey at all.
but whenever I have to put mashed potatoes on it, whenever I have to put gravy on it, I'm just saying in the hierarchy of birds that I consume, turkey is
It's
not
low on,
is
low
not
on
It's low on the tier list.
Yeah. So you're saying it's like JTS to Levante David's chicken.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Because chicken year in year out, you know what you're getting. You're getting something that's gonna be good. It's gonna go out there. It's gonna make plays. It's gonna go out there. You know, it's not never gonna retire. You know that chicken is just gonna go out there and put out a good product, right? Turkey, dry, boring. It's year three,
It's
and
you.
and just the turkey's not getting the job done.
2 years of turkey and it's just not stepping up.
It's turkey's not stepping up. Are you gonna rotate in chicken more? I don't know. You're trying to get real creative with the lineup. Maybe you're rotating in some mac and cheese. Maybe you're rotating in some collard greens.
You gotta step it up. If your house is not making mac and cheese, you gotta be the guy
My household is the Todd Bowles
of Thanksgiving.
of Thanksgiving. We just stick with what we have and we don't rotate in anything new. I'm gonna add it.
They're stubborn with it.
I'm
They're
adding in that mac and cheese. How hard is it? Look, listen. Let's get a little mac and cheese in there.
You gotta be the guy.
I'm
Step up.
I'm
Gotta
gonna be
make
the
it.
guy. I'm gonna be the guy this year.
You got a problem with Todd Bowles. You better call some different plays there. Be the Dave Canales.
Yeah.
Fight back. Or maybe be the Byron Leftwich, I guess, because he really fought back because he wound up losing his job over it. I don't know.
It's true. Oh, James, let's just get an aged prime rib roast. Let's do something different, man. If today's theme has been what can we do different,
True.
what can we do different on that Thanksgiving
Yeah.
table to put
Wow.
out a good product? And
Do you
I'm
guys have apps for Thanksgiving?
appetizers.
Yeah, do you guys like do I don't know
Deviled.
something?
I don't know. They do like think sometimes we have deviled eggs or something. I don't like
Ooh,
deviled eggs.
me neither,
Not a
James.
big.
I
That's
mean,
like a
we have dip usually, like some sort of like buffalo chicken dip or like like
we don't have
veggie.
it. We don't have it. All we have is what I explained: turkey, mashed potatoes, turkey gravy, green bean casserole,
Yeah.
stuffing. Those are the five. I know we have those every year. I know
Yep.
we do.
I cannot get on board with deviled eggs.
I don't like deviled eggs. We have them. We have them for Easter dinner a lot.
At least it's on theme.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
on brand for Easter.
Yeah. You big green bean crack casserole guy,
Mm, we have it. Kelsey makes green bean casserole every year.
and it's the best.
I love it.
No cranberry sauce. Oh, we do have cranberry sauce too. Too sweet.
Yeah, that's a
Why am I
too
mix?
sweet.
Why am I mixing cram? Why am I mixing a berry sauce with savory food?
You don't mix it. That's the only thing that stays separate on the plate.
Is the
Everything else
cranberry
gets
sauce?
cranberry is off to the side.
Okay.
Everything gets mixed, and then you have the side of cranberry and the side of the sweet potato casserole. Everything
Somebody
else is big jumble.
somebody said we eat liver and hearts for appetizers. To each their own.
Said what now?
Livers and
Liver
hearts.
parts of what being?
The turkey.
Oh,
The
like the
human.
gizzard.
Human
Like,
liver.
well, I don't know, James. I'm like, that was just
We're not getting an admittance of cannibalism here.
gizzard. That's different. That's kind of cool, though. I'm not gonna knock
I
that.
like that. That's different. That's unique. You know what? Bat W's household. Guess what? Those they're throwing in those hearts and livers at D end. Whenever they usually play nose tackle. That's what they're doing. That
I can't appreciate it. I've never tried it, so I'm not gonna knock it.
I've
I'm not
heard
gonna.
I heard fried they're pretty good. Also, some people have said to me like, "Oh, just deep fry your turkey." Listen, I shouldn't have to go to such lengths for such a boring bird.
Deep fried turkey, but it's probably good.
What's up?
I've never had deep fried turkey either, but it's
It's also
probably good.
super dangerous.
It's dangerous?
Yeah, of course it is. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, everybody in the chat. It's super
Yeah.
dangerous, dude.
Happy Thank-
To deep fry a turkey, you need an oil drum, and you just dunk it into the oil drum. Have you never seen deep fried turkey videos before?
No.
They're
No.
wild. They're
So
wild.
people, this is not like an at-home thing that people do. This
Oh, it
is like
is. People do it at home.
they buy drums
Y-
full of oil.
Well, no, it's empty. It's empty, obvious. Like like you
What do
buy
you?
you get like an empty container, you fill it up full of cooking oil, you dunk that bad boy in there and cook it, fry it.
Yeah, okay, that's different. But cool. It probably tastes great.
I'm sure it does.
I'm not gonna knock it because I never tried it. It probably tastes great. Of
Well, Billy, happy Thanksgiving.
course. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody who's hanging out with us on a Wednesday night. Of course, we appreciate it.
To talk about some Thanksgiving food. It's been fun.
But it's always true. Do really appreciate it.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So, guys, enjoy your Thanksgiving tomorrow. May have some content out tomorrow. We'll see. May just
Ooh,
take. We'll see.
a little teaser? A little teaser,
I,
James?
I don't know. Depends on what the Bucks do. Maybe I'll just have a hot ton of YouTube shorts of me just rattling off Thanksgiving hot takes. We'll see. I don't know. But guys, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Yeah, I know you got to do it in your yard or you could burn your house down. Straight facts for deep frying your turkey.
That does seem dangerous.
Indeed. Guys, enjoy your Thanksgiving. Me and Billy are going to go enjoy ours tomorrow. We'll be posting some updates. Thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. Hope you all enjoyed. What ways do you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should fix their defense? And also, give us your hot takes on Thanksgiving food because we're here for it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. As always, we'll see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now. Go Bucs. See you guys soon.